Hey everyone, I'm your host, Robbie Straczynski, and thanks so much for joining me on episode number 50 of CardsChat, the friendliest poker podcast in town. Today's guest is not only the founder of, but also a very deserving member of the Women in Poker Hall of Fame. She is one of the game's greatest advocates for women in poker, having founded the LIPS Tour, which is the Ladies International Poker Series, and the Women's Poker Association, over which she presides. She has founded and is the CEO of the Senior Poker Tour, which hosts events across the United States for players 50 years old and older. And finally, she's also a tremendous philanthropist whose involvement as the president of Vegas Connected and Poker Gives has provided for those in need around the Las Vegas area. Lupe Soto, welcome to the CardsChat podcast.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Welcome and hello to everybody in CardsChat.
It's good to see you again, Lupe. How's everything going for you?
Things are going good. Poker's starting to really pick up and people are starting having conversations again, really ready to start opening up series and things like that. And we all know that poker's booming in some areas of the country. So I'm just excited to start getting back to business.
Love it. A woman after my own heart, and I'm sure a lot of us at the CardsChat in the forums would agree with that. Lupe, you're just associated with so many organizations. We'll tackle them one by one, and not just associated. You founded them. You literally started it. Just to give everyone an idea, I sort of kind of feel also, just before we get into all the prepared questions, for everything you've done, and you've done so much for our game, for women in poker, you've flown under the radar in a way. And I feel like it's so important to give you the very well-deserved, well-earned exposure of everything. It's the kind of thing when I discovered what it is that you do, oh my God, you did that, like you've done so much. So first of all, thank you for everything you've done. And everyone who's listening, who's watching, you're in for a real treat over the next hour. So we're going to start with, how did you first get into the game and what led you to become such a strong advocate for women in poker specifically?
Well, I apologize for the dog. I am in my home office.
Yep.
So the very, very beginnings for me was being, and this is something that I want everybody to understand, that girl that is sitting behind the boy who's seated at the table, I was that girl. Okay. I used to go with my boyfriend at the time and I would watch him play poker, and it was kind of our date night. And we would sit there for several hours playing. At the time, it was mid-90s, and it was stud. There wasn't really a whole lot of Texas Hold'em being played. So I learned the game by really watching him play and watching the other players. So I became kind of interested. I didn't realize just how much strategy was involved, which really excited me. And it got to the point after about 4 or 5 months of sitting there watching him that I started critiquing his play.
Oh, wow.
He didn't really like that too much. So he invited me to go get my own seat at a table.
Okay.
That's what I did.
There you go.
And so that was the beginning of my journey. And this was in Southern California and San Diego area. And literally there were maybe 3-4 women in that entire poker room, other than employees.
Right.
But the good news is that I was very social by nature. And so the employees all know who I was. I got to meet a lot of the members, learned about the staff. I ask a lot of questions just because I'm nosy by nature too. And so I learned a lot about the game on the back end, what they were doing, what their jobs were and all that kind of stuff. So it just interested me. And then of course, poker, the game itself is massive. It's like chess, you learn how to play the game, but then you study it and it takes forever to master it. And I don't know, for many of us, we never do, but that was my very, very beginnings.
Mm-hmm. And advocating for women in poker specifically, I mentioned that you founded LIPS, obviously, Ladies International Poker Series, but you had done plenty of advocacy for women in poker before that, sort of like the precursors in a way. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Right. Well, our precursor literally is that because online poker was just beginning in the internet around the late 90s, and I had become obsessed with the internet. There were really not a whole lot of things for people to do. It was the beginning of websites and all those kinds of things. And I had already been a member of the chat box stuff that was kind of like boards, rec poker.
Yeah, sure.
And recreational. They had all the different boards that you could talk, and that was my first exposure. And through Rec Poker, I learned that they were doing online poker platforms, and through that, I got invited to join a group that was on MSN. Remember MSN groups?
Wow.
And it was called Victory Poker Players. And there was about, I don't know, about 50 people that were interested in poker, and they were playing together on a bunch of different online platforms, the very, very beginning ones like Planet Poker and, you know, Paradise Poker and all these different poker places. So it was very, very interesting to me. And we would take our little group. Well, that whole journey wound up leading us to developing that group. And it was just a community of poker players. And we got an opportunity to open our own platform on the Doyle Brunson network, because we grew our little group to like 20,000 players. And I was in administration of that. And then we actually formed a company, and I was a partner in that. And because I knew the internet, I had spent so much time learning about how to do websites and graphics and all that kind of stuff. And so the cool thing was that we had a program, and it was a battle of the sexes kind of a thing. Once a month there was a ladies tournament, and once a month there was a men's tournament. And then at the end of the year, we did a tournament of champions between them. And so we just really enjoyed the camaraderie that went around in this ladies tournament. It was not like our old regular, even this is online, but there was a lot of chat going on and stuff. So we just had a ball. And then I was fortunate that I lived in San Diego area, and that's where the California State Ladies Poker Championship was founded at Ocean's 11 Casino. So I joined that. And when I went to my very first live, you know, tournament and for all women, it was phenomenal. They had food set out for you. They had tournaments, they had gifts, they had fashion shows and shopping and all these fantastic things. And I was like, this rocks. Like, this is phenomenal.
Sounds pretty awesome.
I started sharing that with other women who were doing things that I knew that were playing. So went back to my group and I said, oh my gosh, this is phenomenal. We need to do this. And at the same time, there was a whole discussion about how, you know, poker isn't gender specific, and that we really shouldn't be, you know, separating the genders to be able to do poker and that kind of stuff. And, but yet I had just gone to this phenomenal event for women at Ocean's 11. So as a company, there was a decision to stop the gender separation events. So I said, y'all, I'm going to open my own.
Okay, so, there you go.
So we went ahead and opened Poker Chicks with an X. And that was that was the first online forum for women who played poker. And we grew that to several thousand members. And then when I really started to learn about the live events, and then the support of people who were in Southern California that were interested in, and I was fortunate because ladies events just didn't happen. They had a ladies event at the World Series of Poker, and that was like an afterthought because they wanted the guys to come. And they said, well, while the women are there with their husbands, we'll do this little tournament, whatever. But anyway, so that's how the ladies event started with the World Series. But Poker Chicks, I said, if we can do Poker Chicks with all these women and duplicate what they do at Ocean's 11 across the country for women to be able to come and enjoy this and whatever, that was the beginning of the Lips Tour.
And this is 2004, right?
That was in 2004. Yeah. And so the World Poker Tour Summit had just happened for all of those people that were signed up to be founding locations for the World Poker Tour. And so
the famous meeting, yes.
right. And the bicycle casino was part of that. And the gal from the marketing department of the bicycle casino had just recently, like within that week, had just come off that summit. And she says, I really like what you're doing. I'm going to call these people and see. And just, she goes, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to tell them that this is your name. This is what you're doing. And I feel like they need to listen. And so from that call gave me an open door to start calling other places. And people were willing to give it a try. And that was 17 years later.
Yeah.
We're still doing it.
Phenomenal. It's funny because we do take this stuff for granted. Yes, this tournament's going to have a ladies event and there's lips and there's a lot of this stuff. And, sure, it's a relatively, compared to the percentage of men, it's still very few. But the fact that exists, that did have to come from somewhere. And it's folks like you, Lupe, who have, very much been trailblazers and brought so many women into the game. It's very interesting. I kind of ask, like you said, 17 years of just, continued success and just appreciation for what it is that you do, and obviously continuing to bring women to the felt. What goals did you originally have with Lips, and do you feel that you've met or perhaps even exceeded them over these 17 years?
Well, it's an interesting question because yes, we have been successful in the conversations that it starts, which actually opens up the possibilities for other entities and operators to offer a ladies event at their locations, which that part is great. And the Lips Tour in itself, just having a brand for women in the industry that has been around so long, even if even the men know the Lips Tour, so that part is the great thing. And it has met many goals. The conversation to get started, for a never-ending presence in the industry as a whole, so that we are constantly reminding the industry that it is important that they continue to support the women who want to play the game.
Right.
So that part, in my opinion, is successful. We don't have near as many events a year that we used to. We used to have 24 events a year, 27 events, 30 events, all across the country. I was never home. And it was like, okay, so we had to kind of like change. I knew that the tour itself, although it's fun and I love it and I enjoy the travel and all that kind of stuff, I really wanted to make it more solidified and not be about a proprietary business. It needed to be a conversation about women who play globally. And that's where the Women's Poker Association had to be developed and established. So that was really 5 years in the development before it ever hit the streets of the world. And so now the focus and my energies are really about, I guess, almost passing the baton to the younger generation, because 17 years later, plus more and more years, I've been in the industry for over 20 years now. And it's time. There's a whole new generation of players that are out there. And so the Women's Poker Association needed to be a nonprofit. It needed to be for all women who play. And it's driven by the women who play, and everybody's a volunteer. Nobody gets paid, so now we have an entity with the Women's Poker Association that can act as a voice and an advocacy and an empowerment of all the women who play. It also provides support to operators to teach them, that this segment of players is critically important to the growth of poker, because we're the untapped market. There are some barriers that exist in our industry, and we focused on those, and we wanted to eliminate those as much as possible. And so that's kind of the mission of Women's Poker Association, is to bring more players, mainly women,
Sure.
to the game and to sustain it.
Yep. It's funny. You predicted what my next question is, so I'll do here, because I would say how, but you already said the how. I'll just read officially. According to the WPA website, the organization promotes, develops, and professionalizes the advancement of women in poker by heightening the exposure of current women players while encouraging and developing new ones. And let me say, at least from what I see, I kind of, monitor, have my pulse on the scene. You guys certainly do it well. So more power to you, and certainly very proud supporter, ally of that organization, the WPA. I do want to just, one last thing about Lips, though, before we move on to the next thing. You did have your Ladies Poker Week recently in June. There was a series of tournaments at several Vegas properties. One event was at the Venetian, a $500 buy-in event that was won by Ashley Sleeth. Got to give the shout out, fiance of Jesse Sylvia, who was our guest on episode number 47. Why don't you just go ahead and... Yeah, right? It's cool. We try to get a lot of folks on this show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that week and, the planning of it? And obviously, Live Poker came back, and this is one of the first, kind of big series that was happening. And you had events, again, all over the city. So what was that like, and how did it go?
Well, Ladies Poker Week has been tradition for many years now. And the way the poker industry is right now with COVID and, the emergence of people coming in and there not being a World Series, I felt like it was important to touch and to actually partner and highlight the operators that were still strong in the game, and, say, listen, okay, we're going to have something for you every day for an entire week. And women poker players came in droves, and they supported this, and that basically tells the industry it doesn't necessarily need to be the World Series of Poker that brings women in. Right. It can be just an event series that's for women. And there were some operators who weren't prepared yet to be fully tournament ready, but they definitely were interested. And the week of Ladies Poker Week is usually a hop around. We work with all the people who are supporting that summer series, and it was great. We were able to do it and pull it off and have success. And the women who came had a blast. There was something for everybody. We had some mixed games, and we had we had a horse tournament and an Omaha tournament that were very small. And the reason I'm highlighting that is because most exposure is around Hold'em.
Sure.
My personal goal, because I am a mixed game player, I almost never, the only time I play Hold'em is when it's the H in horse. Okay. So it's like, I want women to know all the other games. And I believe that women who play poker have how do I put this without sounding sexist? And I don't mean to. I just think that women have a brain function that literally allows them to be multitaskers, and multitasking thoughts are what you need to play mixed games.
Yep.
And so I just think they would be really good players in mixed games. So my mission has kind of changed a little bit, and it's to teach women all the other games. And I'm one of the freaky kind of mixed game players. I mean, we play all the Badacies, the Baducies, the whatever. You can Dramahas and all that stuff. But my first goal is just to teach them Omaha and the games of horse.
Beautiful. Yeah, like I said, peas in a pod. I'm very, very much in the similar vein, very pro mixed games. As a matter of fact, episode before you, number 49, we had Dylan Lindy mastering mixed games. He wrote the book on it, literally. So we're very into that stuff here. And poker is not just Texas Hold'em. There's so many different variants to play, and I'm very into that as well. Lupe, obviously, you have a unique perspective. You're not just currently involved in promoting to him, and you've been there, done that for many years. I'm wondering if perhaps you can give a little bit of perspective. How have you seen the growth of poker for women over these last 20 years? And is there perhaps a slightly different message that we need to be sending or promoting now as opposed to 10 or 20 years ago?
Well, I think before 20 years ago, it still was not as supported to have a woman enter into the game. Mm-hmm. It wasn't supported by culturally, mm-hmm. for sure. But even in poker rooms, there was no real conversations around, if a woman comes in and there's issues at the table, what do we do? Those conversations were just beginning to happen. Wow. And they weren't really encouraged. I've had operators really, dismiss the ideas. It's like, look, we're never going to have women here. Yeah, we'll get the occasional girl, but we're just not going to have that. And our focus is really around the young gun guys. Mm-hmm. We would rather spend our money and our promotional dollars and our recruitment dollars around that particular demographic. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it was just very disheartening,
even hearing it just makes my heart sink. Exactly. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. And even all the advertising was geared for young men, all that kind of thing. So I think 20 years later, it's not okay to have that kind of advertising. Sure. It's like there's a better respect for women. There are more industry leaders that are women. There are a definite, it kind of makes me sad that we are still continuing in the majors to be a 4%, right around 4% of the players at that level are women. But you know what? If you count how many players that is, that's huge.
Yeah, that's true too.
It's huge. If we're 4% of 10,000 players, that's a lot of players.
Yeah. Well, but I can tell you one thing. I'm very proud here on the Cards Chat podcast. I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but this is episode number 50. I'm pretty certain we're close to 20%. I'm pretty sure that we've had 10 women out of the 50 guests. So that's better than 5%. We're doing what we can. It's good stuff.
And that's really great. And I think that there needs to be, the Venetian was exciting for us. We call it the $500 event is like our Cadillac for a buy-in. So, it has a lot of prestige. It's really the women who buy into that event are women who are serious about the game. Yep. They've been playing a while. And for the people who are just, that might even be their first real big buy-in for a tournament, so we really encourage that level because it just prepares them for another level, buying into $1,000 event during the World Series. Absolutely. Or maybe a 1,500 and all those kinds of things. So it's like a step ladder. And we find that even though there are so many offering, there's $600 buy-ins, $1,000 buy-ins every day of the week during the summer here in Las Vegas, that even the women who do not play the lower buy-ins at all, they will support. Almost, makes me grin ear to ear to see it, because these kinds of women who are really what I would consider professional women, who are actually in the circuits and doing that and buying, it's normal for them to be in a 500 or 1,000 or 1,500 or whatever buy-in, but they still support the women who are at the intermediate level, you know, and so the Venetian event is very important. But the main event of the Venetian had 3 women at the final table.
Yeah, I remember.
For the WPT. For me, that spoke volumes. The focus. Now, granted, it was a WPT final table, so there's a lot of already media attention around it. But for half of the players to be women has never happened before. Maybe one on an occasional, you know, year we'll have at a final table, but to have 3 at one.
It's a good thing. Are there any other shout outs to, you know, we've mentioned the Venetian, of course, perhaps other, you know, venues that you partnered with that are, you know, certainly on board, have the right messaging, or, you know, any, you know, tournament directors or something like that who you want to sort of, you know, highlight as, hey, they've done the right thing? Because I do think it's important to, you know, give the good handshake and show that sort of, you know, mutual support.
You know, I do. And we are so blessed because there are so many that have understood the mission all along. But it doesn't discount those that aren't involved. And I'll tell you why. Because if you are on the industry side of poker, you understand, especially if you are in a casino that is not a poker room. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If you're in a casino where there's slot machines and all this other stuff, it is already difficult for those guys to do anything in poker because they have so many corporate things that they have to jump through, all these hoops before they can get something new on board.
Yeah.
And it's kind of difficult for them to go to them and say, you know, we really want to support this program right here for women to come into the game and blah, 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 and all that kind of thing, and get the support from the upper management. So I don't discount those guys because at least they'll go to bat for us. Even if we're turned down.
I love that you said that. People don't realize, you know, like, you know, as an event organizer, you know exactly what it takes. And there are so many levels and hoops to jump through. You know, good on you. That's important. And I myself forgot it. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah.
Yeah, but we have phenomenal relationships. You know, if you just go across the country, we have relationships on the East Coast with like Best Bet in Jacksonville, the Seminole Hard Rock people. We have a great group that's up in little tiny New Hampshire. They're a card room up there. You know, we've done things in the Borgata. We've done things. Gosh, I'm going to get in trouble because I'm going to miss people. But you know, and then and you start moving over, and we've had great support in Mississippi. You know, kind of those mid states is more difficult. I don't know what it is, but the conversations I've been having them annually, and we still have had very little success in the mid states. If we do get a one-off one year, sometimes it doesn't come back. And it's because they have a finite number of tables and the regulatory problems that they have in some of those mid states, that it's not valuable for the bottom line. You know, and so we understand it, but we still pound on the doors, and we're still trying to do things. And there's other ways to activate a program for women in a poker room that doesn't require it being a women's tournament. So, you know, we're working with them on that. Let's see. So Tunica, Mississippi, we've got the Horseshoe, and it used to be the Gold Stripe together, but now, you know, the Gold Stripe's gone, but the Horseshoe is still supported and supportive. Let's see, gosh, Texas is, we've worked with Texas Card House, and well, let's see, Post Oak is gone now, but what's the other one? I'm sorry, Free Rolls Poker out there. But Texas is kind of crazy because there's a card room on every corner
it's
now.
Brand new.
You know,
it's kind of huge.
And no gaming commission. It's like,
Right.
you want to do that? Sure. You know?
The Wild West in Texas. Anywhere in
It
California?
really
You
is.
mentioned the bike, right?
California, we have the bicycle casino. We've done Commerce. We've done Hawaiian Garden. Well, they're not, they're the
The
gardens.
gardens, the gardens.
It'll always be Hawaiian Gardens to me because that's where I'm from, is out that way. Let's see, Ocean's 11, of course. They were our originators. We've worked with in Minnesota. We've worked with Aces,
Running
and
Aces, right? Mhm.
just
The
I'm
reason
not
I
gonna
ask
sit
you,
here and go crazy.
the reason I
But
ask you to give those shout outs is, folks, if you're listening, if you're watching, these are the places you should be playing. These are the
yeah,
places you should be patronizing, saying, yeah, whether you're men or women, like they're on the right track. And that's I think it's
yeah.
just so important to give them that
And
nod.
I'll be in trouble if I don't mention Vegas.
Okay. Okay, so go for it.
Our own state of Nevada. I mean, Peppermill has been phenomenal over the years. Up in Reno and down here in Vegas, where we partner with the Aria, with South Point Casino, with Golden Nugget, Venetian, Orleans. Oh gosh,
Caesars, you had
Valley,
something also recently.
Caesars,
Yeah, sure.
Sahara. I mean,
Wow.
really, they get it here.
Wonderful.
And so they've been very, very supportive. Both MGM properties, Caesars properties, and the independents have all, they said, yeah, let's do what we can do. So I'm just very, very appreciative of our own. I think, Nevada's the poker leader when it comes to trying new things.
Excellent. Before we get into the philanthropic endeavors that you're obviously very involved in as well, one more question about as far as like ladies and advocacy. There are some folks, both men and women, who also who they sometimes suggest, I don't know if more ladies events is necessarily what the poker community needs. Maybe we should focus a little bit more on just doing a better job of making women feel more comfortable and included in the poker room. And that's, a justifiable standpoint as well. What kinds of things can you suggest to make poker more inviting to women? Because I think perhaps it's both. Both approaches are fine. But beyond the ladies' events, what other sorts of stuff would you sort of recommend as far as both the players as well as those managing the rooms?
Well, there's a couple of things. The Women's Poker Association's mission is to create an environment where we eliminate the barriers for women to play, right? And for us, and we actually are publishing, I believe this week, a survey of almost 500 players about their poker play. And some of it was responses from women who play, people who are brand new, people who don't play and why they don't play. And it's a real nice snapshot as to what needs to happen in the industry for us to grow the industry for women who play or want to play, or even to invite them into play. The very first barrier is that we need to stop the abuse at the tables. This isn't church for sure, but it is definitely a game where we can light the fires of people's emotions for all kinds of reasons. Bad beats, people not playing right, people being smelly, people, whatever it is, at a table. It has a lot of triggers for emotion.
Sure.
The problem is when people don't check their emotions and don't behave well at the table, because any experience that a person has, even if you take away the game, let's not talk about poker per se. If you go to the UPS store and you're going to go there to mail a package and your experience there is less than stellar, your idea of going back to that store again is probably not going to happen, right? You're going to choose not to engage again. The same thing happens at a poker table. If you're at a poker table and your experience isn't good, the likelihood of you either returning to that card room or to play with those players or any of those things, those factors might be a consideration for you to return.
Right.
So if we want our game to thrive, we've developed an entire social movement around this very factor. It's called the Raise It Up movement. We're asking poker players to commit to raise up the respect, raise up the fun, So if we do those two things, we'll raise the growth of the people who want to play the game.
like
And
it.
it's a very simple, hashtag raise it up. It's a reminder to players. We have patches and, that kind of thing. We're currently recruiting poker rooms around the world to adopt the Raise It Up program, and we will certify them if they agree to adopt the social media or the social movement to tolerate it's a zero tolerance of abuse policy, number one, that they adopt the Raise It Up thing, and also that they have in-servicing with their staffs in-house for them to learn how to diffuse, potential situations, policies in place as to what they do in-house when there is a situation. Do they eliminate a player? Do they give them a timeout? Do they eat 86 them? Whatever it is,
Right.
but they have to have those policies in place. The second thing that we're asking people to do, and this comes to our fellas, is we believe that there is a tremendous amount of men who support women in the game, even if they have only one or two, or maybe they have a sister or a mother or, a friend that plays the game. They support them. They encourage them. Over the years, and this starts back from the beginnings of Lips, I would have an event and the men would come up to me and say, wow, this is really great. And you know what? I brought my girlfriend, or I brought my, sister or whatever to play in your event because I really want her to see why I enjoy this sport. And they would ask me, what can I do to support the women who play? And I was struggling with that. I didn't know. I could not come up with a concept that would really identify a man who supports women in poker. Fast forward to current times. The Women's Poker Association, and this is where I really believe that it takes a tribe, it takes a nation, it takes all that kind of thing. One person might have a concept or an idea. Yes, I knew that the Women's Poker Association needed to be a vital entity in order for women to grow in the game. But it was because of all the women who believed the same thing that came together that were able to develop these wonderful programs. And the one program that we came up with is called, well, first of all, let me preface this. Women's Poker Association has a color. It's purple. And it's all, our W in the WPA is purple and our gear is purple, and it's just an identifiable color, right? It also means royalty. Purple's the color of royalty. So we're a bunch of queens. So we wanted to use that portion in our concept for the men who support women. So the other thing is that when you think about men, and if there's a symbol that identifies a man, there's not a whole lot of them, but one of them is that men wear neckties.
Sure.
And if you see a necktie, you think of a man. So we came up with the concept of the purple tie guy. And basically, it's just another snapshot way that somebody, just like if you are a Yankees fan and you go to the table and you're wearing a Yankees hat, I know what you support. I know that you like the Yankees. We have come up with the purple tie guy. It's a little patch that a guy can wear. He can sign up to be a purple tie guy. We can have events for the guys who support our purple tie guy campaign. And for a woman, or even for other men, if a guy's wearing a purple tie guy pin or a patch or something like that, we immediately know that guy right there supports women in poker. And usually, I believe that when people know better, they do better. And when they represent either the Raise It Up program or a purple tie guy, they know that they need to behave a little bit better because they have committed to support these two things. So if we can blanket the whole industry, and if entities will start adopting these things as
Gosh, Lupe, are you still there?
I just think that if people will commit and support these kinds of programs by wearing a Raise It Up patch or being a purple tie guy, and it's a very tiny effort for a very big message.
Yeah.
So if you wear the patch, when everybody has their favorite poker hat or their poker backpack or their poker jacket, they slap on all the things that they visit with. Just add ours,
Right.
Raise It Up patch and commit to that, and be a purple tie guy if you're a guy in the industry, and show women that you support them and that you want them to be there.
Right. Well, Lupe, of course, you're talking to one, and
I know Robbie's one of our very first purple tie guys. Yay!
They're very proud to be one. Okay, moving into the wonderful charity work that you do. Another tremendous aspect of your work in the industry over the years has been with a charitable organization called Vegas Connected, and more specifically related to poker. Poker Gives. Poker Gives was originally founded by the late Mike Sexton, Linda Johnson, Jan Fisher, and Lisa Tenner, and you now sort of preside over that organization. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, Vegas Connected, Poker Gives, what they do, and your activity within the organization?
Well, Poker Gives, specifically when it was first founded, they were hosting, different types of poker events and raising money for the charities that were specific to their hearts. They all picked one, and like Mike's was Wounded Warriors, and it was like the Special Olympics, stuff like that. And of course, poker players are some of the most generous people on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And people, as far as philanthropy goes, we have a ton of poker players who are more than willing to either lend their funds from their winnings or just their names, if they've had success, to be able to continue support, in charitable work. So then Mike and Linda and Lisa, they all kind of wanted to retire. They got to that point, and it's like, we really, and we had already had our own charity, the Vegas Connected charity. We were already doing a lot of work, that kind of thing here in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And so they came to me, and because I had helped them originally get the Poker Gives started. And so they said, we really would like to have you take it over, do it. And we agreed that would be phenomenal, just as a perfect blend for what we do already in the charitable work, and then being in the poker industry myself. So, and that is my background. My background is actually I'm a therapist, and I was a social service administrator for years before I quit all that to become a poker degenerate. but so anyway, Linda and Jan and them, they said, "Hey, will you take it over?" I said, "Sure." But we had to change it because that model didn't fit it, because we were actually a direct services charity. We actually provided services. So what we did is we took the Poker Gives moniker and just said, you know what? We're going to continue the fundraising through the poker world, through people if they have a success, we ask them for a percentage, a 0.5% or whatever, to be dedicated to the work, and through charity tournaments. And we continue work, but our work is direct services. And the other thing that's very, very important for you to know, again, our nonprofit is completely volunteer based. Nobody gets paid. So everybody who's doing something is doing it out of their goodness of their heart. We have a phenomenal executive director, Barbara Jones-Zangaro. She is a tournament director at the Orleans, and was at the Aria for years and years too. She started off as a dealer, and now she's a floor person. Now she's a tournament supervisor. And Barbara feeds the homeless. We were already doing things separately. And Barbara and I had a conversation. I said, "Barb, you're doing what we're doing." And she goes, "Yeah, I know." And I said, "Well, how would you like to be our executive director?" And she goes, "Well, I would only do that, if your organization, doesn't make a lot of money in your administration and all that stuff. And I said, well, yeah, I hit the nail on the head because nobody gets paid.
Absolutely.
So we wound up joining our efforts. We were doing hard goods primarily for the homeless, things like clothing and toiletries, to support good health. As you know, people who are very dirty out there
Sure.
don't get a lot of support, even
Sure.
if you're getting for a handout or whatever.
Sure.
So there was that. And then, and we also were doing youth services. We support back to school. We have a very significant Title I school population here in Las Vegas. And so we were supporting those students with backpacks and school supplies and that kind of stuff. We're doing drives and parties and that kind of thing, get the kids the supplies that they needed. And then we work with we have a very large Air Force base here in Las Vegas, Nellis Air Force Base. And when they receive, there's an assistance program there. And when they have a family that they can't meet the needs of, depending on whatever, either they don't have budget for it, or it's just a very odd request that they don't have a program that fits, then they refer that family to us and they tell us what their needs are, and we set out to do that. Now, it has used to be very, very active, that our little program there. And since COVID hit, it's like nothing. The base and the military are taking care of their own, and that's a beautiful thing. I'd rather have no social service needs.
Of course.
Right?
Right.
Because that means that things are getting taken care of.
That would be.
But our focus has changed a lot since COVID, because when everything got shut down, we went to go do our distribution, which we were doing on Monday nights in a dirt lot. It's where a lot of homeless are. When we got there, and they hadn't eaten in 3 days.
Oh my God.
And we're like, well, what's going on? Well, nothing's open. So they couldn't panhandle on corners. Everybody's locked in their houses. There, you had to only go to a drive up if you wanted to go get, some hot food. They didn't let you into the restaurants. It was just, they had nothing. So the last, since March, a year ago, we have been serving the homeless food. So we set up every Monday night. We served in 2 different locations, about 250 people, full on hot meals. And we have volunteers galore cooking like crazy on Mondays. And then another set of volunteers that actually go and set up and do the serving and then pack it all up and go to the next location. Wow. And they serve again. So it's a lot of work, but it is a labor of love. And, here in Las Vegas, if you've ever been in Las Vegas, we're an oasis. There is a city of Las Vegas, and then there's desert for miles and miles. The next real town is like an hour and a half away. So if you're homeless, you're stuck here. Yeah. You can't go anywhere, and we're a very toxic environment as far as heat, extreme heat and extreme cold, so they have a lot of needs. And during this last bad heat wave, we've lost lots of homeless people. It was like daily, several people, found that didn't make it. So, our goal is to serve those that we are tasked to help.
Obviously, you do such an incredible job. And as you mentioned, it's all completely voluntary work, which also means the overhead is basically kept to an absolute minimum of whatever it is. Basically every dollar that's sent the way of Poker gives.
Yeah, the gas, you go drive, you're paying your own gas.
Right. I mean, literally every dollar sent to Poker Gives goes to help those in need. How can people help if they want to support this sort of a incredible work that you do? What's the details, the addresses, and how to contact you guys?
Well, there's a couple of ways. You can go to pokergives.org, and there's a donate button on there, and you can choose if you want to do a one-time donation, a recurring donation, or even if you have some success in a tournament that you're playing in, or a good cash game session, and you find it in your heart to pass a little to those that really could use your help. We appreciate that. Barb is always at the, 5 or 6 days a week. She's at the Orleans. So if you see her at this, as the turns are, and you want to drop her a red bird, we'll take it,
Brilliant. Brilliant.
whatever's going on. She's so funny because I'll tell her, hey, a donation came over here and and she goes, oh, I got to tell you, I've got like, a pocket full of chips here I need to deposit too.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Really great.
That's the true integration of poker into it as well. Lupe, I want to make sure we have. Oh yeah, go ahead.
And one more thing. The beautiful thing, we lost Mike Sexton last year, and that was a significant impact in the poker industry for many, many reasons. But for Poker Gives and for us specifically, he was always a voice for us. And the family has been very, very generous. They have allowed us to continue Mike's memory and the work that he started. So we now have the Mike Sexton Charity Poker Throwdown Tournament, which is a team concept. And it's super fun. And we're going to be hosting it in October. I think it's the 8th here in Las Vegas at the South Point. Like I said, it's a team competition. So you can get all your friends together and become a team, or you can, your local poker room, ask them to support you guys and, do your team buy-in, and it's all for a good cause. So now we have the Poker Throwdown available to any poker room who wants to be. It's trademarked for Mike. And so if you are interested in hosting a Mike Sexton tournament anywhere where you're at, well, we would definitely like to work with you and get that arranged for you.
Amazing. Absolutely beautiful. That's going to be in October, and to benefit Poker Gives. Again, the website is pokergives.org, right?
Yes.
Excellent. I want to make sure, we're running a little bit short on time. We got to get to the community questions. But before I do, I can't not ask you at all about the Women in Poker Hall of Fame, of course, which you started and which you are a member of. 2 questions. So what inspired you to start it? And then, obviously there's been a bit of a lull since the last ceremony. When can we expect, hopefully, perhaps the next induction ceremony of the new class?
Okay. So the Women in Poker Hall of Fame really was because coming in to the poker industry and learning about poker and who the movers and the shakers are, and who were the people who were the trailblazers, for what we see today. A lot of them were women. And I was like, how did that happen? There were stories that needed to be told, and there were people who were working very, very hard for their careers to make the industry what it is today, and they needed recognition. I was very fortunate to meet a great many of them and to learn their stories. And I said, these and it wasn't about me. I mean, people say, oh, you built this Hall of Fame so you could be in it. I'm like, no. Hardly. As a matter of fact, I told them, I said, this entity, if it ever thrives, it has to be at least 10 years old, a decade old, for me to even be considered. I said, I don't even want to have that conversation. This is about women who've been there and are doing it. So, there were some people that were very well known. And so I started talking to some different other entity people, because we didn't want to tell those people that were the actual trailblazers that they were being considered until it actually was able to be viable and supported. And absolutely, the industry was very supported. They were like, yeah, that makes sense. We do need to recognize these people. And at the time, the very year that we started, or that we had been working on it for a year, planning this whole Women in Poker Hall of Fame and what it would look like and what the criteria was and all that other stuff. And they inducted for the very first time a woman into the Poker Hall of Fame, and that was Barbara Enright.
Wow.
Okay. And I was like, see, we're on to something.
Brilliant.
So, but the reality is, in all of the years of the Poker Hall of Fame, there's 3 women in the hall right now? Jennifer, Linda, and Barbara. Right. And that's it. And so who knows when will be the next and how long it'll take for another next. So we aren't going to wait around. It's like, let's start featuring these women. So that's where that is. And the criteria for this is it's a public nomination process. And then the media and the current Hall of Famers get to vote on who should be inducted next. And it was supposed to be last year, the hall.
Okay.
And because of COVID, it didn't happen. And it's every 2 years. And so this year we're going to host the Women in Poker Hall of Fame, and it's scheduled for October.
Awesome.
During the International Women's Poker Championship Series that's being held at the South Point Casino.
Okay.
The 6th through the 11th. So we're doing some tweaking right now, but the final numbers and the final dates and all that kind of good stuff is very shortly to be announced.
Excellent. Looking forward to seeing it happen. I know it was, I had the great privilege of being at the last one where you were inducted in 2018. It was very special, beautiful ceremony, beautifully arranged. It was just an incredibly positive vibe. Just very cool. If you have the chance to attend a Women in Poker Hall of Fame induction ceremony, definitely a one-of-a-kind type of event. And I can't not give the shout out specifically to Linda, because she was, again, a former guest, past guest here on the show, episode number 39. And as longtime listeners already know, 50 episodes in, we like to give a shout out to the previous episodes. And after listening to this one, go ahead and listen to number 39, Linda's, number 47, Jesse Sylvia's. There's so much more Cards Chat podcast content you could listen to. It's time now. Lupe, are you ready? This segment of the show, we turn to our listeners, those who are watching and tuning in each week, to see what questions you guys wanted to ask our guests. We have a dedicated thread on the Cards Chat forums for this. So as we announce who our future guests will be, please be sure to send in your questions. We've got 3 great contributors this week. Crystals, thank you very much for sending in this question. Lupe, if you could wish for anything in 5 years from now, what would it be?
I would wish that every woman who is a poker player would do one of 2 things. 1, become a free member of the Women's Poker Association so that your voice will be counted in the industry where we're such a minority. That would be the first thing.
I love it.
The second thing would be that you, as a woman poker player, would dedicate or commit to teaching 2 people how to play, 2 other women who are friends, neighbors, family, what the game is and why you like it. Expose them to the game, teach them the rules, encourage them to play with you, and maybe we can just plant some more seeds and have more women join us.
I love it. Fantastic wishes. And obviously, it runs very, like I said, anything 5 years ago. You could have just said, I want to win $50 million in the Mega Millions or something like that. This is literally
whatever.
I love it. It's near and dear to your heart, and that's obviously the most organic way to grow it. It's word of mouth. Tell other people, introduce folks into the game, men, women, and I love that answer. It's fantastic, and thank you, Crystals, for that great question. Acid Burn FX, thank you very much for this great question. Lupe, what is something that no one else knows about you?
Oh boy. How about if I say it and then I don't tell it?
That's fair. Okay, sure. That's fine. Like the category of what this is or something like that.
I've been in jail in 3 countries.
Oh boy. Okay, we will leave it at that, but that is certainly a very, very fascinating answer. Maybe once we're off the air, I'll get some more details from you. But wow, great question and unbelievable, unpredictable answer there. Thank you very much, Lupe. Shells, the final person who sent in some questions. We got a couple of them for you, and then we'll be wrapping it up. Obviously, Lupe, you have such a presence and an influence. You've done so much, and obviously so many people say Lupe has been my influence to get involved in poker advocacy, Women for Poker. Who was your biggest influence?
As far as women in poker, it would have to be Linda Johnson and Jan Fisher. They have been incredibly supportive from the minute that we met. And I met them at Ocean's 11 at the California State Ladies Poker Championship way back when. They were invited guests. And we just hit it off. And every time I picked up the phone to either they've mentored me through this whole thing. They've helped me navigate through the poker industry. And whenever I would hit a roadblock, they were willing to pick up the phone and help us eliminate that roadblock.
Amazing.
So I would have to say that I don't think the poker world realizes that they're not just advocates for women in poker. They are poker mega giants.
Yeah.
What if it wasn't for people like Linda Johnson and Mike Sexton, online poker would never have hit here. If it, people don't get it. So for me to not only have them as dear friends and family to me, that I don't think we would even see the progress that we have so far in all kinds of different aspects of poker and what the offerings are in the poker world.
Amazing. And then again, I got to give that shout out, episode 39. That's Linda. And hopefully, I know she's just had a little bit of a procedure. Hopefully Jan will join us on a future episode as well. Great picks and, just wonderful people. Honored to be their friend as well. Final question from Shells, Lupe. What do you consider, we saved this best one for last. What do you consider to be the best piece of advice to give? We'll give you a time chip on this one. This is a deep.
Yeah, that's a tough one, but I think when you know better, do better.
I like it. Well, simple, straight and to the point. That certainly answers the question and it resonates deeply for all of us who need to hear something like that. Guys, thank you very much for sending in your questions for Lupe Soto. And of course, a friendly reminder once again to everyone in the Cards Chat community, we'd love to see you submit your questions for our future podcast guests in the dedicated thread on the forums. Please be sure to give us a good review on iTunes and spread the word via your social media channels if you liked the show. Lupe, before we let you go, anything else you'd like to tell people watching and listening?
I just, if you want to learn anything about what we've talked about today, just visit our websites. And, if you ever need to reach me for any kind of a question or whatever, you can reach me at lupesoto.com. Pretty easy.
Pretty easy. It doesn't get easier than that. Lupe, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today. I really enjoyed speaking with you and certainly lived up to my hopes and expectations, and I'm sure everyone enjoyed it. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of the Cards Chat podcast. I'm Robbie Straczynski. You can follow me on Twitter at CardPlayerLife. I wish you all a wonderful day.